This country is going mad. And I'm not sure if it's all of the... No, I know it's not all the country, to be fair. But there are elements of this country that are going mad. And that madness is exemplified and amplified, exaggerated for effect, by the mainstream media on a regular basis. Can I give you a really good example of that? Last Friday, just so that you know, I put in my nomination. Well, it was last Thursday actually. I put in my nomination to be a candidate for the Otago Regional Council. So I'm standing to be re-elected again. All right. And so I had to go and find my passport, Josh, because for some strange reason they don't believe you anymore. So you've got to give them proof of identity. Well, it used to be that you didn't. You could just say, "Hi, I'm Joe Blow," and turn up. But now, I guess because they had a whole lot of fuss. Harry Dijnhoven, the ex-New Plymouth MP, Labour MP, was a good example of that. A lot of fuss about people who weren't citizens of New Zealand, but who had got elected. So they had to get rid of them. And so now you have to provide proof of citizenship, either your birth certificate or your passport, to prove who you are. And it's such a prosaic thing to do. You say, well, what's the issue? Well, it's this. The world's gone mad since this government said, instead of having Aotearoa on the top of your passport, Josh, you're going to have New Zealand. So my passport, I'm pretty sure, has got New Zealand at the top and Aotearoa on the bottom. It was changed by the last government for some strange reason never explained, to put Aotearoa at the front and New Zealand at the bottom. And this government said, no, we'll go back to New Zealand at the top. And there's a reason for that. I mean, it's not simply that we've never debated what the name of this country is and made a decision. You know, it's not like New Zealand suddenly officially changed its name. We've never had that debate. We're still excluded from it as a public, as a society. There's been no pieces of legislation that have gone through that have renamed New Zealand Aotearoa New Zealand. None. We're New Zealand. That's the way the world knows us. And if we suddenly started calling ourselves Aotearoa, the rest of the world wouldn't know who we were. They certainly know New Zealand. Well, over years. So unsurprisingly, they put New Zealand at the top. And as a little, I guess, what's the word? A little bit of cultural whimsy, they put Aotearoa. Now that's fine. But for some strange reason, the last government decided, no, Aotearoa is up front. That's the name of our country, Aotearoa New Zealand. No, it's not. Our country's called New Zealand. And until New Zealanders decide by democratic means, either through the elected representatives or by national referendum, it's New Zealand. We're not Aotearoa. No matter what the mainstream media might call us, no matter how many liberal left-wing journalists and liberal left-wing organisations believe that they can impose their particular cultural lexicon upon us, this country is still called New Zealand. So the passport recognises that. But just because it is, the left went mad and so did the liberals, and suddenly Radio New Zealand, Television New Zealand, almost every media outlet in this country was giving enormous coverage to people who said, what an absolute affront to the Maori race, Maori culture, te reo, and the first people here, and how dreadful this is. Can I say it's not? I am a great believer and understand well that the first people to come to this country were Maori. Good on you. Now, there's a whole lot of people who've come up with some lovely conspiracy theories about some red-headed Irishmen being here first. Good luck. Or some Vikings who somehow decided to leave the northern hemisphere and cross the equator and come down here. Oh, how sad. It's almost as sad as suggesting that Maori, for example, were the first explorers of the Antarctica. Whoa, wacko stuff. But certainly, I mean, there's plenty of archaeological evidence to suggest, and it's widely accepted that Maori got here first, came to an uninhabited land and inhabited it. All right, that's fine. That's fine. That's cool. And New Zealand has always given respect to Maori, their culture, their language, and it's received considerable support billions of dollars in the last 50 years to support culture, language, even Māori schools, which is a bit problematic for me, but I will carry on. It doesn't matter. But when you start imposing the Māori culture, and today's show is a little bit about that, on others, and you argue that it is not just it's important to acknowledge, but it is the predominant, no, it is the dominant culture that should have sway in this country. It's unsurprising you get a reaction from, well, I was just going to say people like me, everybody normal in this country. It's unsurprising. So this whole palaver about the passport, having New Zealand first and Aotearoa second, that's even on the passport, I would have thought was that actual fact a mark of remarkable cultural respect. But it's just a nonsense. But over the last 3 or 4 days, boof, it's gone. There's another case that we'll be talking about later on after 12 o'clock today with one of our guests, in actual fact, Murray Dika, the sports broadcaster of quite significant renown. I think he had his own TV show there for a long time as well. To do with residents in Takapuna on the North Shore having a problem with the Pahutakawa, a huge Pahutakawa that's fallen down in front of their block of units. So they live in nice retirement units largely. A huge Pahutakawa tree has fallen down, as trees do, just quietly. And they obviously have gone to the government, to the Auckland City Council and said, we'd quite like the tree removed, thanks very much, just chopped up and pulled away. Well, at least 2, 3 Māori trusts have opposed the removal of the fallen Pahutakawa because, quote, of its cultural significance in relation to Te Uru Tapu, the sacred grove of Pahutakawa in Takapuna. These raku are living wahi tapu. Well, it's not living, that's why it's fallen over. To ourselves and our whanu and our whaanga iwi who relate to the site, they say. They were concerned that the removal of the tree would undermine the wahi tapu of the sacred grove, saying it has the potential to continue to live and to thrive. And I'm looking at it, Pahutakawa now, huge tree on its side, and its ability to live and thrive, good luck. It's certainly, in actual fact, taken up most of the green reserve in front of these block of flats. Now, in this particular case, it's almost absurd that a Māori group who don't live there, or Māori groups plural, would in actual fact seek to ruin and just would allow nature to ruin a spot which was meant to be green grass, a sort of passive reserve, which the residents enjoyed, and presumably members of the public as well, who can't now because there's a bloody great Pahutakawa that's fallen down over it, and it's fallen down because it's not healthy, just quietly. Pahutakawa don't just fall down because it's going, I'm just going to have a rest, John. You carry on with your wahi stuff, and I'm just going to have a rest now. I'm just going to turn over. They don't suddenly get up again. So here we go. It's these 2 minor incidents in the scheme of things. You know, New Zealand being first, and the residents battling iwi over the fate of a down Pahutakawa, that suggests that there is coming into this country a view that it's not simply the cultural view of some Māori that should be predominant and dominant, but it is their spiritual and religious beliefs as well. Listen, our forefathers came to this country desperate not to bring all of the religious crap of the old world to them. New Zealand brought, always has believed, and it's one of the great things about this country, we're a remarkably secular country actually, in comparison to the rest of the world. And one of the reasons is because in the 19th century, the British colonists that came here didn't, and all the other European colonists, didn't want to bring all the crap of the old world to them. The largely doctrinal disputes between Catholic and Protestant, and then, you know, all the various denominations within each of the Protestants as well, and, you know, Catholic offshoots too. Didn't want that. So they actually set up a country that was pretty secular. In fact, our 1877 Education Act, as you know, set up one of the best education systems of the world, which we've managed to sabotage completely in the 21st century, but it was going to be compulsory, free, and secular. And the key part was secular. Now, for some strange reason, and I don't understand it, a whole series of people who don't believe in God, mostly the left and the liberals, don't believe in religion at all, decry Christianity on a regular basis now are seeking, for some strange reason, to imbue New Zealand with a Māori mysticism that is nothing less than supernatural, and that it is as mad as, well, I've got to be honest with you, evangelical Christianity, or those who believe that second coming is going to happen tomorrow, or some sort of Muslim sect somewhere else, or the Hindus, or anybody else. Listen, we don't play this game. We understand that if people have religious faith and backgrounds, and I do, believe it or not, you should be practicing that, I won't say in the privacy of your own home, but certainly you shouldn't be imposing it upon others. For some strange reason, we've moved from the idea that religion is a private concern, and it's up to you and your relationship with the supernatural, to, well, no, there's one particular culture in this country and their supernatural beliefs, their religious views, their cultural expressions that should hold sway over everybody. And we are moving day by day, minor incident by major incident, every day into accepting that Māori spirituality is by definition New Zealand's. We're moving away from having a secular society, one in which everybody has their own religion. We respect the fact you all do, but you're going to practice it over there. You're not going to oppose anybody else, are you? No, we're not. Suddenly, we are going to impose it. And I know they are minor, small things, but the Pahutakawa battle on Takapuna is just the latest example of that. It goes along with the compulsory karakia that you get before every event. Oh, bugger off. Why do you need a karakia before every event? I can understand it on a marae. It belongs there. That's where it comes from. It's sort of like a Māori church, if you like, in some ways. But why would you suddenly, a whole series of white wankers sitting around a particular table, doesn't matter whether it's a council table or some sort of corporate meeting somewhere, start and end their meetings with a karakia? It makes no sense. You are imbuing a secular workplace or meeting place with a spiritual dimension. But I'll just add, only one spirit. These are the sort of people that were complaining, just could I say, if you started with the Christian prayer, if you started with the Lord's Prayer, there'd be bound to be objections there. I can't do that. It's non-inclusive. It's non-inclusive. No, Muslims and atheists and agnostics feel very upset about that. No, you can't have the Lord's Christian prayer. Can't have that, but we can have Māori spiritualism imbued and dominant, pervasive, and becoming more so in New Zealand's culture, economy and society. It's an absurdity. And listen, we've got to say no. We've got to object. We've got to say the karakia doesn't belong here. It belongs over there where it was created. It doesn't belong in the workplace. It doesn't belong in the public sector. It doesn't belong around corporates. It doesn't belong anywhere except where it was created for. And similarly, we don't need the supernatural to be invading everything, like some common sense around a fallen bloody Pahutakawa. Oh my God, suddenly it's got some sort of spiritual connection and it has to stay there, even though it's dying and dead, because it's wahi tapu, which means very sacred to us. No, 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 no. You play that argument, there wouldn't be a centimetre of lawn, a centimetre of earth, of any form of land in this country that doesn't have, as the water does apparently, some sort of spiritual and spooky connection going through it. Listen, it's time to say no. And I have to say, it's starting here. Those are my thoughts this morning. What are yours?